Hello Year 4, happy Friday. Today is Friday the 29th of January and this video is for the children who have the Year 4 Comprehension booklet. Now today we're going to be looking at page 30 and it has the title Swim, Bike, Run or Triathlon Story. Now I just want to give a shout out to Ben Martin because he has been trying really hard with his comprehension work. And I know he's not really been enjoying some of the texts because I think they aren't too interesting for Ben. I don't think Ben likes some of these texts. So hopefully today, Ben, because this one is about sports, you'll be a little bit more interested in this one. And as always, please make sure that you're writing in full sentences. Some of you are still forgetting that you need to be writing in full sentences when you write your answers. Okay, it's really important that we get into a routine of writing our answers in full sentences instead of just writing one or two words. Okay, so you need to try your best to practice writing those answers in full sentences for me, please. Okay. So before we start today's lesson, I want you to make sure that you complete your spelling test for this week. So if you've been practicing your spellings on Letterjoin or Edshed, now's the time for someone in the house that you are with to test you on your spellings. So I would like you to pause the video here, have a go of completing your spellings. Please send in your scores so we can track them. We do have quite a few children that do a good job of this, but some of you still need to be making sure that you're doing those spellings because we need to know the spellings that are getting set every week because they're spellings that we have to learn in year 4. Okay, so take the time whilst you're at home to practice these spellings. It doesn't take too long to go onto Edshed or Letterjoin. You only need to spend about 10 minutes a day on there to give it a go so you're ready for your test on a Friday. Okay, so pause the video here and then when you've done your test and had it marked, press play and we'll carry on with the rest of the lesson. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go at your spellings and you've done your spelling test, so great job. Your learning question for today is to consider word choices for a text. So your questions today, there are a couple that ask you to discuss why certain words and phrases have been selected in the text and you need to talk about why. Okay, but before we start, I just want to quickly revisit what adverbs are. And you've got 5 sentences where you need to add an adverb to each one. Okay, so adverbs are words which modify the meaning of a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. Okay, so in my example on my screen, I have 3 sentences, and the adverbs have been highlighted in pink font, so you can see examples of what adverbs are. So girl runs quickly, this is a very sweet mango, and Peter reads quite clearly. Okay, so they don't all end in ly, as you can see, but give it a go. Try and add some adverbs to those sentences and send them in. I know quite a few of you had a go with the breaking the code at the start of our Bletchley Code Breakers lesson, which was fantastic. So please have a go at adding adverbs just so we can get used to practicing our word classes. Okay, so before I start, we've got 4 new words that we're going to very quickly discuss, and I've added photos to these again just so you can see what I mean when I'm talking about them. So our first one has got a picture of a man with all of his cycling equipment and his bike in a field with lots of other bikes and cycling equipment. Now when you do a triathlon, there are 3 different sports that you take part in. So the first one is a swim, and then you run, and then you cycle. Now the transition area is where when they come to the end of their swim or the end of their run, they have to change into the appropriate clothing and make sure they have the appropriate equipment to allow them to go on to the next activity. So the transition area allows them to go from running into cycling a lot more smoothly than what they would if they didn't have that transition area. Okay, so everything is laid out and prepared for them, so when they need to come to the end of their run, they can very quickly get ready and get on their bikes. Okay, so a triathlon is an Olympic sport and it involves 3 sports because tri is 3, it means 3 things. the word 3 in French is tres, so it's 3. And it involves swimming, running, and then cycling in that order. And they have to do a certain distance of each activity, and after each activity they move on to a new one until they finish at the end with their cycle. Okay. The people involved in the text are Olympic athletes, and they refer to an area called the Serpentine. Now, the Serpentine is a park where they can go and train and take part in triathlons. And if you can see on the picture, you've got the body of water where they would do their swim. There's a track where they can run, and then they also have a track where they can go and cycle as well. So that's where the authors, the people that are talking in the text, they refer to the park because that's where they went to do practice triathlons and training. Okay, so it's just an area that they refer to. That's where they go to. Disconcerting. I couldn't quite find a picture to represent disconcerting, so I found 2 pigeons having a conversation, and one of the pigeons is asking, are there any other words for disconcerting? And the other pigeon is very clever, and he's come up with a huge list of different synonyms that mean the same thing. So disconcerting means something that is quite upsetting or confusing. It might be a little bit awkward or disturbing. You might be embarrassed by it. Okay, so it's just a word that explains how they're feeling. Okay, so now that we have our new vocab, we're going to go and have a look at our text. Okay, so the guided reading dog that we're using today to support our text is author Arlo. Now, I've tried to use different guided reading dogs this week, just so we can get used to the different skills that we need for when we do comprehension. So author Arlo has a job to look at all the words and phrases that have been used in the text, and he likes to try and understand why they have been used. So our learning question today is to consider word choices for the text that we're looking at, and author Arlo is going to help us with that skill. Okay. Before we begin, the text is an example of an autobiography. So, the job of an autobiography is to give an account of your life so far. So we look at 2 brothers, and they're both Olympic triathletes, and they're giving an account of their life story. Now, it's written in the past tense, typically. So it's usually written in the past tense, and a lot of the closing statements, so the things that we see at the end of their writing, usually use present or future tense. Okay, so I want you to have a read of the features of an autobiography. Now, some of these things that cover an autobiography, that are included in an autobiography, we already know about. So we've learnt about time connectives and conjunctions. So we've learnt about temporal conjunctions, haven't we? We've learnt about using temporal conjunctions and adverbials of time, because we know that fronted adverbials can be used as temporal conjunctions as well. So later that year, next year, in the future, they're examples of adverbials of time. Something else that it includes are positive and negative experiences and how they shaped the individual's life. They also discuss their feelings and their opinions, and they refer to precise dates and locations. So they might say, Friday the 29th of January 2021 at 10 a.m. I woke up and I had my breakfast. I then went to speak to my friend who was taking part in the race with me. Okay, so it includes specific people, it includes achievements, and it includes precise dates and locations, because it's about someone's life. It's almost like a diary, but it's more formal, and it's a more varied account of what's going on. Okay, so have a read of the features of an autobiography, because we do have a question that asks you about features in this text that make it an autobiography. So what pronouns are autobiographies written in? Are they first, second or third? Have a look when you read the text. That could be an example of one of the features of an autobiography that you could include, okay? So if you need to go back to this slide, then jump back to this slide to help you to answer that question later on. But I wanted to explain what an autobiography was before we went to look at the text, before we go on to looking at the text, because then you've got a good idea of what one of them is, okay? So at this point, I want you to pause the video, read through the text at least twice, and then we'll go through the questions together. Okay, so hopefully you've read through the text twice at least, and if you've picked the new vocab that we've covered, that's great. Let's see if you've been able to pick that out. And we'll very quickly go on to discussing the questions. Now, I said at the start of the week that I wasn't going to help you as much towards the end of the week because we've been practicing different skills. We've been practicing picking out key information from the question. We've been practicing identifying areas of the text that we need to look at when we're answering certain questions. And I've also given us sentence starters to help us to write in full sentences for these questions. So we're going to have a look today at some of those key skills again. I want you to try your best to use them on your own, and we'll talk through some of the questions together, okay? So question 1 is asking you to look at lines 1 to 6 to identify a phrase that shows that the Olympics final was very important to Alistain. So if you look at the text, we've got Alistain Brownlee and Johnny Brownlee. Oh, let's highlight that one a little bit better, Miss Prince. We've got Johnny Brownlee. So question 1 is just looking at this bit here. So question 1 is just looking at the bit that Alistain is talking about. Okay, so you need to find in lines 1 to 6, so there onwards, so that bit this side that I've just drawn a box round, you need to look around there to find a phrase that tells us why the Olympics final was important to Alistain. And then you also need to write why you think that Alistain was surprised to have slept well. So if you put yourself in Alistair's shoes, it's the night before an Olympics final and it's a really big important race because Alistair's representing his country and he slept really well. Why do you think that might be odd for someone who's got a really big event coming up where he's representing his country? Why might it be odd that he's surprised to have slept well? Okay, so have a think. If he's taking part in a competition, he might be feeling nervous or scared. Now, put yourself in his shoes. He might be excited. So what might that mean for Alistain when he tries to go to sleep? So why is it that he is surprised to have slept well? Okay, moving on to question 3. How did Alistain feel before the Olympics final? How does this compare to the way he usually feels before a race? So you need to read the text, the piece of writing, the paragraphs for Alistain, and you need to identify how he felt. And then you need to compare it to the way he usually feels before a race. Okay, so I would start my answer off by saying Alistain felt, and then perhaps nervous, excited, he felt happy, scared, and then I would write because he is taking part in the Olympics final. And then I would then expand on that and say this is different to when he usually competes because he usually feels, and then you would write in how he would normally feel. Okay, so very simple for that question. You just need to break it down into a couple of sentences. You need to identify in the text where he's explaining how he feels before a race. Then we move on now to question 4, looking at Johnny Brownlee. So he's Alistair's brother. And it's asking you, why does Johnny use an exclamation mark in line 25? So, why is it that he uses an exclamation mark in line 25? So here I can see it. I've got a definition of what, well, it's not a definition, it's just a sentence that explains what an exclamation mark usually shows. Now, it does usually show feeling, but it can also show sound. So an exclamation mark usually shows strong feelings such as surprise, anger or joy, but it can also show things like sound. So when you write speech, you might add an exclamation mark at the end of when someone has spoken because they are shouting. So you know that when they're writing, when there's an exclamation mark, it might be because they're upset and they're shouting. So if they've used the word bang, why have they used an exclamation mark? Is it because it's a quiet noise? Or is it because it's a really loud noise? Why do you think we've used an exclamation mark there? Okay. Question 5, we're looking at line 27. So I can see here line 27. There. And it says, why do you think Johnny stopped being nervous? And I would start my sentence off with, I think Johnny stopped being nervous because. I know this because it says in the text that, and then I might add quotation marks and write a little bit of where I can see in the text where Johnny stopped feeling nervous. Okay. Question 6. Write down one feature of this text that shows it is an autobiography. So we've already looked at features of an autobiography and what we can identify in an autobiography. So you need to write down a feature of this text that shows that it is an autobiography. So I'm going to highlight a couple of bits to show you where I can see features of an autobiography. So straight away I can see the time, the date and the year. I've identified here that I can see first person pronouns. I can also see that he is talking about his emotions. Okay. So I can also see here he's reflecting on his experience there. So I've highlighted some key features there that will help you to identify one of the examples of a feature that you would find in an autobiography. Okay, so there's plenty for you to choose from. If you need to, I would rewind back to the clip where we talked about examples of the autobiography, just so you can see the help sheet on the video to help you answer this question, and then I would write my answer down. Okay, so give it a go and try your best. The last question, again, as always, we're looking at an opinion question. And it's asking you, how do you think you would feel if you were about to represent your country in your favourite sport? Explain your answer. So this is any sport. It could be walking, running, cycling, swimming. It could be dancing. It could be ice skating. It could be snowboarding, skiing, football, rugby. Okay, so whatever sport is your favourite sport, put yourself in the Brownlee brothers' shoes, and I want you to think about how you might feel. So after reading the account, they've said that they were excited and nervous at the same time. How would you feel, and explain why? So I might say, if I were to represent my country in swimming, I think I would feel nervous because I would be representing the whole of my country and a lot of people would be watching me. Okay, or it might be that I would feel privileged because I am able to represent my country, and that makes me feel proud of who I am and where I come from. Okay, so have a think about how you would feel. Okay, now your challenge is to write a small autobiography about someone you find, who you find inspires you, and explain why. So it could be a mum, it could be a dad, a brother, sister, it could be someone famous, it could be someone at school, it could be a friend, and you're going to write a couple of things about them, and then you're going to have a go at explaining why you chose to write about them. It could be yourself. Okay, so have a go. Pretend that you are them and write an autobiography about them. Okay, so you need to put yourself in their shoes, and write something that's happened to them or make something up. It doesn't have to be true just for this activity, but I just wanted you to have a go at writing an example of an autobiography, okay? And as always, send work into year 4 at sandonprimary.org.uk. Before we go, I just want to very quickly go over Give Me 5. So we're going to have another go of reflecting today. So thumbs up, tell the person that you are with something that you have learnt. Pointing finger, what skills have you used today? The middle finger, which skills did you find difficult today? The ring finger, how did you show commitment to today's learning? So what did you do to help you to learn? Did you highlight, underline keywords? Did you go back in the video to help you answer the question about features of an autobiography? Did you try to use your best handwriting? What did you do to help you with today's learning? And your pinky promise, what will you make sure you remember from today's lesson? Will it be something that you have learned, or will it be that you've recognised that you need to be writing in full sentences, or you need to try and use capital letters and full stops a little bit more? Or is it that you need to make sure that your handwriting is beautiful? So give yourself 5 and give yourself a high five for making it to the end of the week for week 4 home learning. You're all doing an excellent job. Please keep it up, and I will see you all on Monday for another comprehension video. Bye.